What's up YouTube? I'm Brandon from Tattooing 101. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to draw a feather. If you're new to this channel, make sure you like and subscribe down below so you can keep up to date on all the content we make for you guys each week. So as always, we're going to start out with our red and our sketching pencil. Now, if this was a neo-traditional design, new school, something like that, I would want to draw it with some flow, which is using, S shapes, things like that. And I would also use a reference of the actual part of the body that I'm going to be drawing for. But because this is teaching you how to do traditional, which is the easiest to kind of get your mind wrapped up on, and just the starting point, if you are starting to draw, definitely recommend starting out with traditional designs and then working on to more detailed things like neo-traditional with different line weights, things like that. So I'm going to be teaching you the easiest designs that I know that I could draw out of my head to help you guys out with your drawing. So as always, I start out with different shapes. So the first shape I'm going to be doing is the main part of the feather. I'm going to have the feather facing this way. And I think I'm going to add some string on here. So we will just add some string however I think it'll flow best with the design. Right like that. And then we'll have the rest. And we're just drawing our shapes, getting everything exactly where we need them to be, mapping everything out. And this is how I do every design. No matter what style I'm doing, I'm always going to start out with my red, go in with my blue, and work for everything else. So now that we have our shapes and everything, we could turn the opacity down of this layer, right like that, and work on our blue. So we're going to add a different layer, and with this layer, I'm going to be going in and mapping everything out completely. So, making sure that I'm using all my tools at my disposal to be able to draw everything correctly, because our final step after this one is going to be our complete. Holding down for any of the circles to make sure that they are perfect, right like this. Now working on the string. So I don't want the string to be super thick. I don't want it to be overpowering. So I'm just going to make some thin string right like that. Let that kind of go behind everything right there. Awesome. Now we can go through and kind of map out exactly where the different filaments of the feather are going to be. So some of these lines I'm going to have go in a little bit further. Some I'm just going to barely, go into the design. What this is going to do is create some depth, but you don't want too much because this is a traditional design. You don't want to go too detailed with it. You just want it to look right and be able to make sense of what it is without going too crazy in detail. Now usually with this step, I'll be sketching, doing it like this instead of kind of like perfect lines. But with this, I've really drawn feathers so many times in my life that I could just go through and draw them. But if you are first starting out, I recommend that you go in and kind of sketch it like this. Just build up everything where it needs to go before going in with your, final kind of stages. And there'll be a couple straggly ones right there. Cool, and this is pretty much the gist of how everything's going to be mapped out for this design. So now we could jump on to our final and turn the opacity down on our blue, get rid of the red. And this is going to be our final design right here. So we're going to take our time and go through everything exactly where we want it to make sure everything's 100% with our design. Because this is what we're going to print off for a stencil. As you're working, you could go through and, erase the parts that need to have the other ones. Obviously, if you're doing a long line, it's better just to go through and come back and erase it so it doesn't affect the full effect of the design. And making sure that you're using the full effect of this program, so holding down to make sure all your circles are perfect will help a ton whenever you are making designs. That's the biggest thing with working with pen and paper, is you can't use all the tools like Procreate has, and that's why so many different artists are switching over to Procreate, just because it makes everything a whole lot easier. Anytime I'm going through something, you could see that I actually erased this part so I could go through, pick up, and then just finish my line. If I tried to do this part and then just this part, it probably would have thrown off, it would have been out of place. So I make sure that, if I'm going through something, that either I go through it completely and erase it, or just skip over it, kind of like I just did right there. I'm going to be doing some of these tutorials within the next upcoming weeks. So if you guys have anything you struggle with drawing and would like to see me draw it, make sure you leave a comment down below and I'll check out. And whatever one is kind of like said the most, I'll definitely do a video showing exactly how to draw that specific subject. But we did a poll a couple weeks ago and a lot of people were having issues with drawing, so I wanted to make sure I touched base on that before moving on to other things when it comes to content for YouTube. So make sure you leave a comment down below. And also, I'm going to be explaining how I do color on these designs as well to help you guys better understand how I do that. So now that we have the outline done, we could jump on to doing the color. So obviously with this, I'd be using like black and gray, things like that. I like to use Murder Weapons by Dave Tevenall. It works really great, so I definitely recommend you check out his stuff as well. He makes different brushes, which I pretty much use his. I've tried different ones, and this is just what works best for me. So if it's something you want to check out, definitely recommend doing that. And I also use the highlighter tool with automatic. This makes things a whole lot quicker and easier to do. So all you have to do is use this as a reference right there. Go to a different layer, and then highlight the areas that you want to do, and just go over and shade them right like that. You could just go through highlighting these different layers very quickly and efficiently, shading them one at a time to get the effect that you want. One thing you want to make sure is that all of the lines match up. So you just saw right there that this line's open. So what this is going to do is have everything highlighted outside this area. So what I usually do is I'll go through here, and because this area is going to be a different color, I could just go through and block this part in, block this part in. So when I go to highlight this now, it will actually work in these areas, as you could see. Add a little bit of shading right there. Now usually I try to stick with the inside really light, so this area right here, I might add a little bit of shading on it, but just not too much to where it goes back into it. I just don't want it super overpowering, but I want a little bit of shading in there just to complete the design. Now we could go through and add our shading in here. I want to start out pretty dark right here. And then where any of the turns are, just add some shading. And I think I'm going to do these red, so I'll go through fill these in red, then I'll go back with my black, and then add the shading over top of it. Obviously, this is the backwards way of doing things if you were tattooing, but on Procreate, you know, you want to make sure you're doing your color first, then you could add your dark tones over top, but do not try that with tattooing because you're going to mess up completely. Okay, now we could go into finishing up this bottom part. Let's do this one a teal color. This one a yellow color. And we'll do this one. Let's go with green. Green looks really good. And this is how I make a traditional design fully colored. You could use this for tattoo flash or letting someone see exactly what the design's going to look like before tattooing them and showing them different colors. So obviously, if they wanted the little balls or beads to be red, you could go through here and take out the green part and show them exactly what it would be, you know, done in red, or show them different things. So that's why Procreate's such a great tool, because you could just take off that layer, use this to print off the stencil and tattoo that right away. So this is exactly how I draw feathers.